Let me see the back of that jacket.
Welcome back, Screen Crush. I'm Ryan Airy. With Spider-Man No Way Home bringing back iconic villains from previous Spider-Man films such as Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Jamie Foxx's Electro, and more, it makes me wonder if these villains are actually the same versions of the characters that we've seen before. See, we think that it's possible that we all could be looking at variants. That's right. Variants, like we saw in Loki, except instead of variant Lokis, we could be looking at potentially hundreds of Doc Ock, lizards, goblins, and the clues were right in front of us all along.
What?
So let's start with Dr. Otto Octavius.
Wait, no, seriously, what's your actual name?
Now, most people have speculated that Doc Ock will have been plucked right from the Raimiverse in his final moments of Spider-Man 2, when he was drowning in the river after having redeemed himself and saved the city. Saved it from himself, granted, but still good for him.
Good for her.
Now, that theory isn't without reason. Alfred Molina did say that his first scene in No Way Home picks up back where we last saw this character.
The river.
I think that what Molina might be referring to is the fact that his first scene in the film does indeed take place on a bridge right above the Hudson River. The Hudson River, of course, being the same river that Ock drowns in Spider-Man 2. But let's break down in detail why we think that this is actually a variant of Spider-Man 2's Doc Ock. First of all, the sweater. Doc did have a sweater like this in Spider-Man 2, but it was destroyed, and he never wore it again. Not once. Second, at the end of Spider-Man 2, he of course redeems himself in the same scene where he finds out that Spider-Man is Peter Parker.
Brilliant but lazy.
In No Way Home, it's obvious that Ock thinks he's fighting his universe's Spider-Man, whom he knows is Peter Parker. In a TV spot for No Way Home, we hear him ask Spider-Man if he thinks his fancy new suit's going to save him.
You think your fancy new suit's gonna save you?
Obviously a reference to the fact that his Spider-Man has a very different suit than Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
Who are you?
I'm Pam. Who are you?
I'm the owner of this house.
Then of course there's Ock's reaction to Peter.
You're not Peter Parker.
And this.
Do you know a Peter Parker who's Spider-Man?
Yes.
Is that him?
No.
So Doc Ock in No Way Home is aware that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and he still seems to be evil in his first scene in the film, on this bridge fighting Spidey. So that brings into question, okay, so if this is the same Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, then it has to be him after he learns that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. There are only a few minutes that pass between Ock learning Peter is Spider-Man.
We have to shut it down. Please tell me how.
Peter Parker.
Him overpowering his arms and saving the day.
Listen to me now.
And then drowning. So it doesn't add up that this is the Doctor Octopus from that very moment in Spider-Man 2. And if you want, real quick, let's jump back to the wardrobe. This is what Ock is wearing in that final scene in Spider-Man 2. No sweater, no shirt. So, unless it's just a continuity error, or Ock went out and bought a sweater after arriving in the MCU, then came back to the bridge to fight Peter, which I find very unlikely, then this just isn't the same Otto Octavius. And speaking of wardrobe, the sunglasses Ock are wearing in Spider-Man No Way Home are the sunglasses he did indeed wear in Spider-Man 2, but those sunglasses were destroyed by Aunt May when she hit him with her umbrella. He then wears a different pair of sunglasses for the rest of the film. So the Raimiverse Ock no longer has those sunglasses by the time he finds out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Now you might think it's a little silly to dissect his wardrobe, but Marvel has a great track record with being consistent on these kinds of little details, like the recreation of the Avengers' final battle in Endgame. Now in the trailer, we do see Doc Ock rise up from under a bridge that crosses the Hudson River, so it's entirely possible that this Doc Ock also had an evil lair on the Hudson in his universe. But think about that post-credits scene of Venom 2. We see Eddie Brock and Venom transported from their universe into the MCU, but they're still in a hotel room. So while they were transported to another universe, they still popped up in relatively the same spot on this Earth that was also in their universe. This Earth also has a hotel in the same location because these universes are parallel and share many similarities. So it's possible that Ock was plucked from a universe where he was in his evil lair on the Hudson, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's in the river. In a new TV spot, he says, says,
What have you done with my machine?
and in Spider-Man 2, Ock destroys his own machine. Therefore, he is a variant. But let's move on to the other 4 villains and explain why they are also variants. Electro. Look at him, do I have to say more? This Electro is the polar opposite of the version we saw in the Amazing Spider-Man 2. He's no longer balding, he has yellow lightning, he speaks differently, he acts differently, he has a Stark reactor on his chest. This is an Electro from another universe, not the Amazing Spider-Man universe. Willem Dafoe's Goblin. Now we do see the iconic Raimi Green Goblin suit, but we also see a more damaged, almost apocalyptic version of the suit. Is it possible we could be seeing 2 different versions of Green Goblin in this film, both being portrayed by Willem Dafoe? Or maybe he just changes costumes. Now let's keep in mind that Doctor Strange says,
We started getting some visitors. From every universe.
I tend to think every universe means more than the whopping 2 universes we've seen these villains appear in before. Strange also discusses how all of the villains died fighting Spider-Man, but that's not the case for Lizard and Sandman, unless Lizard considers the moment he turned back into a human to be his death, and perhaps if Sandman was plucked from the good riddance scene in Spider-Man 3 and thinks that he died, which I guess is totally plausible. Or maybe they've had other run-ins with their respective Spider-Men since we last saw them. I guess anything is possible, but I think the most likely scenario is that they're just all variants from alternate universes. Now, some of you may be asking, if they aren't the exact same version of the villains we've met before, then what's the point of even bringing back these actors to play them? Because it's still awesome, that's why. Having the same actors return to play these versions of the villains is still the MCU acknowledging the existence of the version that we've played with before while simultaneously changing them up to be something new. This means that the original storylines aren't affected or tampered with, but we still get to see them return as similar versions of these villains. I mean, we're getting the best of both worlds, literally. It's certainly a better option than casting new actors to come and play brand new versions of the characters and then trying to cram all that character development into a single movie.
You know, when my father sent me away, I tried to forget everything about this place. I guess that kind of included you.
They're doing a multiverse film and have the opportunity to bring back established characters that we've already met and seen the origins of, and we can assume that these new versions are pretty similar to the ones that we've met before. I mean, we've seen J.K. Simmons play variants of J. Jonah Jameson, so why not do that with the villains too? Now, the only thing I do worry about as far as the general audience is getting confused is why some variants look alike and some don't. Peter Parker Spider-Man, for example, will likely have 3 different looks in this film between Tobey, Andrew, and Tom. So I hope that the film takes a moment to have Doctor Strange explain the whole variant situation for people that didn't watch Loki.
No, I don't remember an alligator. I mean, who's to say he's even a Loki variant?
He's green, isn't he?
I don't know, he could be lying. The long con, of course, that just makes him more likely to be a Loki. It's always the game within the game with you guys, which I respect.
But I do think that while the villains will be variants of versions we've seen before, Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man will be the exact same versions that we've already met in their films. I think films will want to know what happened to their characters and what they've been up to over the years, and it's crucial that they be the same Spider-Man that they played in the past and not variants. But those are just our thoughts and theories. Let us know yours down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, be sure to subscribe and smash that bell. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.